Welcome back to the Magnolia Media Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan M. Ruggiero.
And I'm your co-host, Courtney.
All right, Miss Courtney, we're going to start today's podcast following up on a newsletter that I think I posted on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, about toxic masculinity and where this perception of toxic masculinity came from in the United States. In my opinion, it dates back to the Nixon years. And we have to remember, people like Paul Manafort were Nixon disciples. They were young Republicans, college Republicans in the early 1970s, and vowed that what happened to Nixon would never happen to another corrupt Republican president. So this concept of masculinity being tied to being a breadwinner, for example, it's all just, well, it's bullshit, to give it, to be as nice as possible about it. What is your take on the comments that I made the other day? And do you agree that there's a different way to go about being a good man without having to be toxic?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can just be a decent person without being any type of toxic, male or female. But I do agree that I think males have been pushed down emotionally, socially, and it's just leading to a toxic environment.
I don't necessarily agree that men have been pushed down. I think men have failed because they expected the system to show favoritism toward them. Because if we look at 1970, 8% of college graduates were women.
Well, that's men never had to
compete.
They never had to compete. The white male was always ahead.
Right. And now 39% of college grads are women, 36% are men. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you extrapolate that out over 10, 20, 30 years, and more women are getting masters and PhDs, medical schools are primarily female at this point, you start to see a gap in especially the dating pool. Because if I were a young, successful woman, I wouldn't want a partner who couldn't stand on his own 2 feet, and that seems to be something that's being ginned up and especially on the right wing. Again, and as it keeps getting more and more toxic as they raise people up like Donald Trump and George Santos, the man who never told the truth about anything. Do you agree with that assessment, roughly?
Yeah, I mean, as a young female, I don't need someone to take care of me. However, I don't also, you are correct, I don't want to take care of somebody else.
Yeah.
Been there, done that, don't want to do that again.
Seems like more and more young women that I meet have had some sort of a toxic relationship where they have been the breadwinner. They've had some man close to them in age who has just been a succubus on their prosperity.
Personally, I don't speak for all women, but personally I feel like it's, females are not grown up, but encouraged to be more caring, more of others. So I feel like they kind of not feed off that, but it kind of eggs it on. Like, females just want to be caring and empathetic.
And they mature, faster than men. And this brings me to my next point. Should the public school system consider holding boys back 1 year compared to women, just as a standard rule? Because we know there's 1,000 studies out there that show boys mature at a slower rate than young ladies. So is there a case to be made that they should maybe not start kindergarten until 6 or 7?
That's really hard to say. I mean, I think that the school systems in general need to be fixed. I don't know that we should hold back one specific gender for any reason. But at the same time, that'd be a really hard thing to measure to see if that is something that's going to work. You're talking 18 years per study. I think that's just kind of going to not happen. I think it's going to be too much.
Well, anyway, back to our point, our overall point. The idea that men like Barack Obama have been demonized to death by this vast right-wing conspiracy that once upon a time Hillary Clinton took a load of shit for talking about the vast right-wing conspiracy. And now we see it as they have channels like OANN, Newsmax,
Fox.
and, of course, Fox, quote, news, end quote. So we know that she was right, that it was a vast right-wing conspiracy. They were after Bill from the day he took office in 1993 till the day he left office in 2001. And Barack Obama, of course, was ridiculed to death for wearing a tan suit in the Oval Office. But grabbing women by the pussy is just locker room talk when it's a fat, rich white guy and Donald Trump, or the misshapen head of Charlie Kirk and some of the nasty things he said. And while we're talking about nasty people and nasty things, Kristi Noem, proud puppy murderer. Thoughts and feelings on Kristi Noem?
Not good feelings. It makes me very angry. I mean, the puppy was 14 months old, so they argue that that's not a puppy, but any vet will tell you they're 14 months old is a puppy. That's a year old. Right. They're not going to be until they're about 2. So, yeah, I mean, this lady literally just shot a puppy for no reason.
Yeah, we have to hope that Republicans don't win this election, or they might march me off into a gravel pit somewhere, because Kristi Noem, if you happen to run across this, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, fuck you. Cricket, we're sorry that happened to you, and we're sorry to the goat she also shot in the face. And her talk about, this is just life on the farm. Listen, 35 years. I've spent 35 years on the farm, and that is absolutely not part of farm life. That's part of the lifestyle of a sociopath. That's sociopathic, psychopathic behavior. Those type of people should be locked up in specialized institutions, not running to be a vice presidential candidate alongside Donald Shits himself, Von Shits' pants, which is actually in the court record. Von Shits' pants is in the court record in the New York criminal case against Donald Trump. I forget exactly how it came up. I know Michael Cohen calls him Von Shits' pants, but it's on the official record. So, as flies continue to swarm around the nearly dead body of Donald Trump, and the, what was it, Pod Save America? Tell us what happened with this.
I do believe it was Pod Save America, and Fox News said a lawmaker, I do not remember which one, and again, this is Fox News, may not entirely be truthful, said that Democrats were wishing ill upon Trump and morbidly wishing all these traumas to happen. I think Pod Save America made an offhanded comment about he's old. There's a good chance he probably could have a heart attack from all this. Yeah. And they, apparently now we're all out to kill Donald Trump.
And he's like,
which is not a lie, but
he's like 400 pounds. And I mean, I listened to Tommy Vitor and John Favreau. They were excellent speechwriters for President Obama. Tommy Vitor is more of the defensive, all-in, gung-ho Democrat of the two of them. And so it makes for an interesting commentary. It makes for an interesting show. But what do you expect from guys like that? Plus, this is nowhere near the type of thing that, the type of ilk that has come out of the mouth of people like Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk, and before he died, the big fat pill-popping Rush Limbaugh, or, the thing about Rush Limbaugh, and I normally would never say something like, fat pill-popping, because I had that problem myself. But just 3 weeks before Rush Limbaugh admitted to being addicted to OxyContin, he called for the execution of people addicted to drugs. Rush Limbaugh didn't know he was addicted to OxyContin 3 weeks before he made those comments? Is that what you're inferring to me? Of course he did. And then he comes on and begs your forgiveness, and he goes back to lying for another decade and a half before he finally dies at 71 years old. and they want to name a stretch of highway after him in Oklahoma. Well, good luck, Oklahoma. Best wishes to you.
I mean, come on, it's Oklahoma.
I don't know what to say. And Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas, states like that, we've seen the liberal bent when the issues are actually put right to the people. We saw, I think it was Kansas, where 60% of Kansas residents voted in favor of enshrining abortion in the state constitution. So we know that what we would consider progressive ideals permeate even in areas like the Midwest or the Deep South when it's put to voters. And it's going to be put to voters in the state of Florida, which I believe is going to drive turnout up, and give us a real possibility of winning that state. I do believe we're going to flip North Carolina, especially when you look at recent polling and the fact Donald Trump has opened exactly 0 field offices 6 months from an election. 0. If I'm not mistaken, Joe Biden has opened something like 500 field offices throughout the country to campaign.
And it's funny because wasn't he the one that kept pushing trial dates back, saying he couldn't make them and they needed more time?
Yeah, I mean, now he's upset that the trial's going too fast. Wait, hold on a minute. Now, look, this is how trial works, Donnie. You think you would have sued enough people or been in enough civil litigation to understand that when you're arraigned and you plead not guilty, the indictment came down almost exactly a year ago, by the way, in New York City, in New York State. Alvin Bragg brought the indictment against you. Then you were arraigned. You didn't have to do the perp walk and all that. Judge Mershon's in control of the case. Judge Mershon, who, by the way, is sort of the embodiment of the American dream. His family came here from another country. He made it to, first person in his family to go to college, and of course sits on the high court in New York City, or Superior Court in New York City. So he's sort of the embodiment of the American dream, while Donald Trump, wants to stop anyone else from getting the American dream if he were to be reelected. And Judge Mershon everything has gone beyond expectation here. The jury was selected in less than 2 weeks. No, it was selected in a week. Right. Yeah, it was Monday to Friday with Wednesday off. And then we said, it's going to take forever to find an impartial jury. Judge Mershon found an impartial jury, and that would be 3 days, because they didn't seat any jurors on day 1. They seated half the jurors on day 2 and the other half on day 3, and then took care of the remainder of the alternates on Friday. So Monday we had opening statements, and now Donald Trump wants them to put the brakes on, while no one, except for one appearance by Eric Trump, has come to sit in support of Donald Trump. None of his adult children, they're all adults now, including Barron, his wife Melania, who obviously wouldn't want to be, anywhere near all this testimony about his affairs.
I think he's just a family embarrassment at this point.
I mean, it's awful. He's got a gag order against him, and he of course he got hit with 9 contempt charges in the first criminal contempt case that the prosecutors brought against Donald Trump. They hit him. They asked for 10 charges of criminal contempt. They got 9, so that's a $9,000 fine. Then another contempt charge case this week. Trump gets hit with a $1,000 fine and warned that, and I believe Judge Mershon said something along these lines. I realize you are a former president of the United States and that you might be president again. And I don't want to put you in jail. But I also will not have you sort of run roughshod over my courtroom. I have to keep control of my courtroom. And so even this morning, and we're recording this on May 7th, Trump posted something derogatory toward the judge. Apparently got a call from Todd Blanche, his defense counsel, and removed it within 5 minutes. By the way, Todd Blanche, I don't feel sorry for Todd Blanche because he sort of sold his soul to the devil here. But at the same time, Todd Blanche, even the Midas Touch guys, the Legal AF guys, Michael Popak, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, Ben Meisalis, all attorneys, talk about Todd Blanche as a respectable attorney. And then he took on Trump as a client, and Trump doesn't even know his name. I mean, Trump called him the lawyer guy the other day. So
I really do think, like, in 100 years, he's going to be that ancestor that everyone just is pretending did not exist.
Todd Blanche?
No, Trump.
Oh God, yeah.
Be like, we don't talk about that one.
I can't wait. We'll have a gap. It was H.W. Bush, then Bill Clinton, and then George W. Bush, and then the Army ran the government for 4 years, and then Joe Biden was elected.
You forgot Obama, though.
Okay, Obama. I'm sorry. So Obama 44, and then somehow the 45th president was just erased. We have to remember, too, the pettiness of Donald Trump. He wouldn't even unveil the presidential portraits of Barack Obama. I mean, that's the deep-seated hate and racism and the perverted mind of Donald Trump. Now, we've talked a little bit about Kristi Noem. Here's something, just to spit in people's faces, I have to bring this up. Because every time we turn around, especially the New York Times, which wants to both sides this country, especially the Salzberger family, wants to both sides this country right off the authoritarian cliff because they're upset. They feel it's their birthright that Joe Biden give them an exclusive interview. The same thing for the Washington Post, as newspapers become, less than 1% of the news coverage in the United States? Nobody reads you anymore. Perhaps Joe Biden doesn't give you a full sit-down interview because it's not 1943 and the New York Times doesn't matter anymore, A.G. Salzberger. But this personal vendetta against Biden, demanding people like Peter Baker do a weekly column on Biden's age, and is Biden's age more of a problem than the 91 criminal indictments against Donald Trump? Come on, give us a break. This is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that the New York Times feels that they have this birthright to the President of the United States, which of course they don't. And I'm not sure if they realize that they will be among the first marched into the internment camps if Donald Trump were to win. But just to sort of spit in those people's faces, in the poll of polls done this past weekend, Biden has a 49-44 lead. Now, Biden was down 3, 4, 5 points in the last poll of polls. So we're talking about upwards of a 10-point swing in favor of President Biden, while Trump has continued to slump. And when asked about Donald Trump, a lot of voters who broke toward Trump didn't believe Trump was going to be the Republican nominee. That's how tuned out the majority, or not a majority, but a good portion of the American public is when it comes to politics at this point in an election year. Half of that 44% doesn't understand how the nomination process works, and that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee for president, even if he goes to prison in the New York election interference case. That is stunning. Isn't it stunning, Ms.
Very.
Courtney?
I can't wrap my head around it. I really can't.
But we're political junkies, and for those non-political junkies, and that's why, Judge Mershon was able to fill the jury box so quickly. I mean, the head juror gets his news from Fox and MSNBC, from the Daily Caller, far right-wing newsletter, and the New York Times. So that's the media diet consumed by the average American, liberal, extremely conservative, liberal, extremely conservative, back and forth. They're not monoliths the way we are. The way I don't fool with the Wall Street Journal because Rupert Murdoch owns it. I don't fool with Fox News, OANN, any of that other stuff. Fox, quote, news, quote. I don't fool with any of that. I know that you don't either. You have some exposure to it because you have a right-wing family that has it on in the background just about any time you come by to visit. But to see those types of polls, I know it doesn't matter. It's 6 months out. It's just as big.
But it does matter. I mean, it's trending upward.
Well, yeah, the momentum is certainly at President Biden's back. I mean, he has all the money, a 5-to-1, fundraising advantage. By the way, did you see the Trump hissy fit at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend?
I did not.
Okay, so Donald Trump told donors who paid a fortune to get in, that they weren't giving him enough money, that he was pissed off at all of them for not giving him enough money, and that he was going to go attend a wedding that was being thrown at Mar-a-Lago because those people were fucking paying him to be there. And the donor class, millionaire class that was there wasn't giving Trump enough money. So he told them, basically, I'm going to fuck off over here and do this instead. Wow. Now that's a way to get a bunch of rich people to give you more money.
But the really sad part is you're still going to have people giving him money.
Oh, and that's the thing. But
I wonder if Elon Musk was there.
I don't think Apartheid Clyde really has a dog in it. I mean, he's getting... The thing that's keeping him afloat right now is the Ukraine war and Starlink. As we could start a whole nother podcast on what I think is a market correction when it comes to Tesla, and that eventually Tesla won't be valued as a tech company, but as an automobile company, which is bad news for Elon Musk, as we'll watch that overall wealth number continue to drop. Not to mention he owes $33 billion to Sequoia Capital. He only paid, I think, 11, 12, 13 billion out of pocket to buy Twitter at 4 times its value. To overpay for Twitter for 4 times its value, a company that makes no profit, is like putting your life savings in Trump Media or Truth Social, DJT, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's eventually going to crash. We know the moment Donald Trump can legally dump the 115 million shares of DJT he owns, that stock will go to less than $1 a share. The meme stock guys aren't going to be able to keep it afloat. There will be no reason to. And the money will be gone. Your money will be gone. So whether you're a right-winger, whether you're a liberal like us, or left of center like us, please don't waste your money on something so stupid and volatile. Something that's gone from being worth $79 to $19 to $20 to $48, back to $22. Just avoid it. Just avoid it. Don't get beat over the head by this SPAC. It was never an IPO. It was a special purpose acquisition company, a SPAC, which now the SEC is looking into, because apparently they broke all sorts of rules when it came to internal auditing. So I can't encourage people enough to just avoid anything with Donald Trump on it. It's only going to cause you problems and heartache in the long run. But anyway, we ready to transition to something else?
Yes, I believe we were going to talk about the witnesses that have come forward.
Yeah, the Trump trial. The trial of the century. This is OJ, but the 21st century version. So we talked about the polling, but everybody, let's just face it, everybody's eyes are on New York City and what's happening in Judge Merchan's courtroom. Donald Trump was slapped on the wrist last week, held in contempt by the court on 9 of the 10 counts brought by the prosecution. Now, the maximum fine in that situation is $1,000 per contempt charge. That's $9,000. Donald Trump obviously can cover $9,000. Then, this week, contempt again, and one charge of contempt, $1,000, and a warning from Judge Merchan. And I believe it went something like this. I know, this is Judge Merchan speaking to Donald Trump, I know that you were once the President of the United States. And you may be President of the United States again. But I have to keep order in my courtroom. I will not have witnesses threatened or court staff threatened. And I will put you in jail, Mr. Trump. Do you understand? And then we saw an immediate response to that this morning when Trump posted a truth, is what he calls them, on Truth Social, that his lawyers recommended he took down, and it was taken down within 5 minutes. So they've got people, following Donald Trump around, making sure he doesn't.
And now I believe, since we did talk about that already, I know that he is putting on the brakes for it. They've brought several of the witnesses already to the stand. Who all have they brought?
Okay, well, we talked extensively about David Pecker, head of AMI, which of course owns the National Enquirer. They were in the catch and kill scheme. They set the premise that the catch and kill scheme existed, now tying it directly to Donald Trump. And did Donald Trump have knowledge of it? Well, now we know that he did. We also know that David Dennison is Donald Trump. For years there had been speculation that Donald Trump had done things, from publish op-eds to make great comments about Donald Trump using the name David Dennison. Now we know that for sure, thanks to the Cohen tapes. David Pecker has testified, and I think he was on the stand for 3 days?
It was a pretty long time.
Huh?
It was a pretty long time.
Yeah. First of all, an editorial mistake on my part. The other day I talked about Keith Ellison, a Beverly Hills attorney. That was not Keith Ellison. And if I'm not mistaken, Keith Ellison was an old basketball player. It was Keith Davidson, a former Beverly Hills lawyer, who testified that he knew burying the McDougal story would likely help the Trump camp, and also offered information on why the Trump camp wanted to kill the Stormy Daniels story, or the Stephanie Clifford story. Robert Browning, the executive director of C-SPAN Archives. Some of these people have spent very little time on the stand. Let's see. Philip Thompson. Let's see. A court reporter from one of the E. Jean Carroll lawsuits with Trump, who testified that Trump accepted that was his voice on the Access Hollywood tape, which, by the way, only portions of the Access Hollywood tape have been allowed into court thus far. We also have Gary Farrell. We have Ronna Graff, who, if I'm not mistaken, is still a Trump employee, take the stand. We have the comptroller for the Trump organization take the stand, and today, the big one, the one we've all been waiting for, Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels has been, I don't know if they finished cross-ex of her today, but she took the stand sometime a little after noon today, and she'll likely be on the stand for an extended period of time. Stephanie Clifford, we're going to call her by her real name on here, except just to remind you that she is in fact porn star Stormy Daniels, and her experiences with Donald Trump, that she did in fact start shopping her story in 2016, looking for a payout because, I mean, she did sleep with the guy.
Can you blame her? I mean, she made a lot of money off of it.
And I mean, I'd be mad if I were her because Karen McDougal got it $15,000 more than she did, and Karen McDougal was the Playboy model who Trump was cheating on his wife with in 2006 when she was pregnant with Barron, and
they had an affair for like 10 months, I think, didn't they?
10 months. She called it off when Donald Trump started sleeping with, or had his one sexual encounter with, Stormy Daniels. So I guess Karen McDougal didn't want to play third fiddle. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, it's a humiliation in and of itself. So you've got Karen McDougal, you've got Melania Trump, you've got Stephanie Clifford, and of course Stephanie Clifford on the stand today, probably on the stand tomorrow. I haven't checked to see if they finished up with her testimony or not, but it's going to be damning. She's going to explain she has already explained how they met. They initially met at a party, I believe in Aspen. Then they met at a party at the Beverly Hills Hotel. She said she wasn't worried about money at that point in her life. She had more money at that point in her life than she had at any point in her life before or since. So getting involved with Donald Trump was not strictly about money, although that's her business. Let's face it. It's a circus. It's a circus that's being, I will say this, it's being controlled as well as one could hope
with that
by Judge
monkeys.
Merchan. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, having that many monkeys he's trying to corral, I mean, he's doing a great job keeping order.
Right. And if, of course, Trump's too cold or his diaper's too wet.
One thing I think people fail to realize, because I know that Trump is still really trying to push the brakes on this trial and slow it down, is your right to a quick and speedy trial does not just apply to the defendant. It applies to your community.
Yeah, it applies to the nation. Right. Your right to a speedy trial is the right of the people, not just the right of the defendant. And so now Trump's upset this case is moving too quickly because, of course, delay is what he wants. And that's what the Supreme Court has done for him in the federal cases. The January 6th trial was supposed to have taken place already in Washington, D.C. in Judge Chutkan's courtroom. And Eileen Cannon, who I believe is on the verge of being removed from the documents trial in Florida after that incredible rebuttal by Jack Smith's team, which I would recommend everyone read. It's a 24-page just political beatdown by Jack Smith and his team of attorneys, because Eileen Cannon is treading water in a swimming pool that's 20 feet deep. And she just can't keep doing it. She's tried running interference for Donald Trump time and time again. She's been reversed by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals twice now, out of Atlanta. I believe that the bucket to have her removed is overflowing at this point. But I don't think Jack Smith expects anything to happen with that case, including jury selection, until after the election anyway. So they'll probably just sit on that one until something more really happens with it. Any thoughts or comments on these? On everything from the polls to how well the economy's doing, even if people aren't feeling it yet. The economy in the United States is on fire.
One thing people fail to realize with the economy, though, is wages are outpacing inflation.
Yes.
We can prove that mathematically, but people aren't feeling it because you've got these huge conglomerates of and corporations that are price gouging people, and they're placing the blame on the wrong people.
Right. And of course, the corporations can turn around and blame administrations. And
right,
say,
and they're
"Well, it's
our
administration."
wages went up. Well, yeah, your wages went up, but you're also still making $20 million a year. As a CEO, like people, I think need to kind of reevaluate how that is, like their views on the economy.
And for just a moment to speak about the strength of the U.S. economy, Apple doubled its dividend to stockholders at the end of this first fiscal quarter, and executed a $150 billion stock buyback. Some countries don't have a GDP of $150 billion. In the first quarter of 2024, Apple executes $150 billion plus stock buyback. As a business professional, Miss Courtney, talk about the magnitude of that number.
Oh, that's absolutely
billion.
Ridiculously huge. Like you said, there are countries that don't have GDPs.
They could
of
buy
that
Exxon.
high. Yeah, they could buy full countries.
They could buy Exxon with a quarter worth of profit. Apple has managed to do something no other company has ever been able to do. They sell more of their product than any other company out there, and they're the singular luxury brand in that space. So the best analogy I've heard is it's as if Ferrari made up half the cars on American highways. People bend over backward, come up with all different sorts of financing schemes to get the newest, latest, greatest iPhone. 50% of all the smartphones on Earth are Apple, meaning that this luxury brand has essentially taken control of the cell phone market.
And that's just cell phones. I mean, you got to look at watches and computers and
iPods,
headphones, everything they've got.
iPads. It just goes on and on and on. They're creative. They're inventive. They're cutting edge. They're from what I understand, they're doing what they can to get out of China as quickly as possible and get moved into plants in India. But of course, that's going to take multiple years. That's not something that happens overnight. Tim Cook has taken the vision of Steve Jobs and expanded on it in ways I'm not sure Steve Jobs would have if he had lived another 20 years.
I wonder if Steve ever realized just how big Apple was going to be.
I think so, because he kept doubling down before Apple fired him initially. There's a whole long story, complicated story there where he wanted to put function and design over just the cheapest, fastest thing that they could put onto the market, which was what Microsoft was doing. And that's why Steve Jobs had so many problems with Microsoft, because Microsoft took, Microsoft Office and just jammed it out there. It's not the best thing on the market, the best software out there, but it allowed them to sort of get a stranglehold on everything from internet search to creating documents. And Jobs wanted to wait and design something that was first more just appealing, physically appealing, and that had better functionality. So, kudos to Apple. If I'm not mistaken, I think their market cap is over $3 trillion. By the way, Elon, they have not fled California because they realize the great resources California provides for a company like Apple. So Apple's not going anywhere, and neither is Oracle. The number of companies, for every company that leaves California, 3,000 take its place. So this idea that because California is a high tax state, those high taxes pay for the infrastructure necessary to grow these large companies. Anyway, one more note. The NBA playoffs are underway, and as promised, we're going to bring you more than just political coverage wall to wall every time we record an episode. And I have to tell you, I know you're not necessarily an NBA fan, but the Minnesota Timberwolves with Ant and Cat and the Frenchman, Rudy Gobert, have been the most impressive team in the playoffs. They've yet to lose a game. They are currently playing last year's champion, the Denver Nuggets, who are completely healthy with Gordon and Murray and, of course, Jokic. And they beat them in back-to-back games on their home court. They spanked them like redheaded stepchildren. I mean, it has been incredibly impressive what Minnesota's been able to do. And really, it strikes fear in my heart because I'm a Celtics fan. And I'm looking at this going, ooh, the Celtics dropped a game to Miami, the 8th seed, after a 64-win regular season. And I look at Minnesota and say, they're just chewing people up. They haven't lost a game. And Denver's about to have to go to Minnesota now and play Minnesota on their home floor. It's getting scary. It's getting scary for everybody else. Because Anthony Edwards is a bona fide Michael Jordan knockoff. He's got the height, the physical strength, the ability to score in the mid-range game, the ability to blow past guys who are perceived as quick, to get to the rim, to jump over dudes. And then, of course, you've got Karl Anthony Towns, who not only plays as a traditional 4, who I think 6'11", 7 feet even, but it can also knock down threes. And then you have a 7'3", 7'4" Frenchman in Rudy Gobert who can play the 5 spot for you. That is a total team. So is Boston, especially with Kristaps Porzingis when he's back in the lineup. That game is going on as we speak, so we're going to wrap things up here quickly so I can go get my basketball fix, get my NBA IV hooked back up. Because I truly love the game and the way the playoffs have been refereed thus far, allowing the players to play, allowing a little contact, finally having a playoffs that doesn't involve LeBron, who's as old as I am, James. Actually, I'm 10 months older than LeBron James, and I'm old. I mean, things crack and pop. I got surgeries that are being postponed until I'm a little older, and to think about what LeBron's been able to do at age 39 is incredible. It's impressive. Kudos to him. He's had a wonderful career, but it's time to move on. People don't want to see the same sequel for 20 years. Steph Curry, not in these playoffs. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. The Phoenix Suns were supposed to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves handedly, and instead were swept off the court in 4 straight games. They never even really had a chance against this young, voracious Minnesota Timberwolves team. So not only that, but Minnesota's never won anything. Even going back to the Kevin Garnett days, Minnesota never really got it, and J.R. Rider never really got their feet under them and made any noise in the playoffs because the Western Conference has been stacked since the days of Karl Malone and John Stockton. But they're getting it now. Man, maybe they'll get to the finals. Maybe they won't. They are certainly my bet to come out of the Western Conference to go to the finals. When Boston puts their foot on the gas, I think the Celtics are as good as any team in the NBA over the last decade. But they fall into this complacency trap sometimes, and that can really cost them in the long run. But Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, the best 1-2 punch in basketball, a 6'6" guard and a 6'7", 6'8" small forward with all the moves, all the skills, all the scoring ability, and they really share the load in Boston well. And then, of course, you add the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis, when Porzingis is back and at 100%, I think Boston's going to be hard to beat. But anyway, that's my quick take on the NBA. Like I said, we promised to mention some of these, some of the other things going on in the world other than just politics, court, 24/7. So that's my quick 2 cents on my favorite sport other than King Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia, who took Devin Haney, the 135-pound champion, apart in a PBC pay-per-view event last weekend, and then came out and endorsed Donald Trump. Ryan Garcia, yes, Garcia. Perhaps he needs to take a second look at what Donald Trump intends to do with people who have last names like Garcia. Tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. After humiliating Devin Haney, that loss may be removed from his record, and Ryan Garcia could be looking at a World Boxing Federation ban where he can't get sanctioned in any state in the U.S., the Great Britain, Germany. Maybe he can fight in some, podunk countries in the middle of nowhere, but testing positive for performance-enhancing drugs in a sport where people die. This is not sprinting. This is not Olympic swimming. This is not bicycling. This is combat with fists. Garcia fought an impressive fight. He didn't make weight yet again, so it was a catch weight. I don't think anybody's title was on the line. And Devin Haney was knocked down 3 times. Rumors he had a broken jaw. And now we know why. Because after being knocked out with a body shot by Gervonta Tank Davis, truly the face of boxing, the Baltimore Brawler. I mean, think what you want to about Gervonta Tank Davis, but he's incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. In fact, that is one sport Miss Courtney watches, is boxing. Tell us about Gervonta. Gervonta is a stud. The little short guy from Baltimore. The one who dropped Rolly Romero. The one who dropped Ryan Garcia. You know Tank. I know you do because I've watched some of the fights with you. Anyway, moving on. It looks like there's going to either have to be a rematch there or Ryan Garcia has more or less destroyed his boxing career at, I think, under the age of 25 anyway. But at any rate, enough talking, jabbering, even though that's what we do. Tune in for their first episode of the David Axelrod, Kellyanne Conway show so that your ears can bleed a little bit and your brain can literally explode. I hear brain explosions are sort of like snorting a whole lot of water up your nose. It hurts real bad, and then you just fade into the abyss. No, seriously, don't tune into that at all. We recommend podcasts here for you all the time, from On the Media to Pod Save America and Pod Save the World, who, even if they did call for Trump's death, who cares? I mean, they're out murdering dogs and donkeys on a regular basis, so, and doubling down on it, bragging about it. Anyhow, that pretty much does it for me. Anything else from you, Miss Courtney?
No, I'm good here. Just remember to like, share, follow, and tell your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Leave us a review, subscribe. Check out our YouTube videos at Magnolia Media Network. You'll find us on YouTube. Smash that like button. I'll be posting there as much as I possibly can. Let's be honest. When it comes to trying to just do this, it can be a little overwhelming. But anyway, we appreciate you guys so much. From all of us here at the Magnolia Media Network, until next time, be well.